City Matters.
Hello, and thank you for joining me today. I'm your host, Richard Acritelli. This podcast is a production of the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center of Nassau County. On today's episode of The Fog of War and Humanity, here on hmTV, my special guest is Gary Glick, the commander of the Jewish War Veterans Post 652 out of Merrick in Nassau County here on Long Island. Gary, it's great to have you here today. Thank you very much for coming down.
You're welcome.
And tell me a little bit where you grew up as a young man.
Okay, I grew up in East New York on Hinsdale Street in the 1950s. I was born in 1949 in East New York. I was there till about I was 11 or 12 years old. Then after that, I ended up going to Far Rockaway, and that's where I ended up staying for the rest of my time till I went into the service.
Okay.
I was...
How would you describe life in East New York?
East New York, it was a melting pot, literally a melting pot. We used to hang out together when we were youngsters. I remember my friend Tally, I'll go back to his name, he was Russian, and there was a guy named Clark, or Kent, I should say. His name was Kent, and he was black. And the two or three, four of us would just walk the area where we were young kids. I'd say, yeah, we were 10 years old, 9 years old, etc. And we would hang out on the block on Hinsdale and Sutter. And I used to go to PS 174 there. And what happened was I used to stay at my grandpa's place on Alabama Avenue. And my other grandpa was actually on Sutter and Hinsdale where we were living, literally down the block. And we used to hang out at his store. And as time went on, I would say, when I said to Far Rockaway, later on in life, I found out that actually my wife of today, she was living a few blocks away from me and we never even knew it.
Wow.
And she was on Alabama Avenue. I was on Hinsdale, which was 2 blocks away. And actually our grandfathers knew each other.
Wow. Huh.
And it was kind of funny that it's a whole life story, basically.
Nothing like the city, though, right?
Nothing like the city.
The people, the food.
No.
A lot of activity, right?
Yeah, exactly. I would say I'll jump to when I went into the service in 1969. I went in June, but it's like a little before that. I went in the service, and my whole life really changed with going into the Army.
Now, before we go down that road with the military, now, where did you graduate from high school?
I graduated from Far Rockaway High School.
Did you play any sports there? Did you
no,
stay busy?
did not. I did not do anything there. I ended up just floundering, literally, and until I guess in 60. I would graduate in 1967, and in 2 years after that, I was just going nowhere, literally. And that's exactly what was going on. I made it to high school. I ended up graduating with a general diploma and ended up working in New York City in P. Lorillard. And I was there for 2 years, and the draft was upon me. But I just didn't want to go to college, and I wasn't going anywhere, basically. And
did you get drafted or did you enlist?
No, I ended up enlisting. What happened was my number was number 11.
Okay.
So I did not want to be drafted because I was afraid at that time, they said your quote is Army, Navy, Marines, or whatever it may be. And I just didn't want to go into the Navy.
Sure.
Because of certain things that happened to me earlier in life.
Yeah.
And I joined, and actually I ended up joining because my number was number 11. And then I found out after I joined the service, my mom told me, basically, you were accepted to the reserves. But I was not, I was happy that I went to the Army.
Sure.
Basically.
So you would have gotten sent to the Naval Reserves then?
Oh, I could have been anywhere.
Wow.
I could have been anywhere.
So you end up getting into the Army
I
Reserves.
decided to just join at the time. I decided to sign on the dotted line. One of the few at that time. Also, at that time they had what was going on in Israel, the War of '67,
Sure.
and I was contemplating before that to go to Israel. But then I realized something: I'm an American, and I'm not going anywhere but staying in America.
Yeah, you did have Americans that kind of went back and forth between Israel and
exactly.
here,
Yes,
right?
Yes,
and,
yes.
Wow, and all those wars from what was it, 1948 all the way up until modern times.
And I just felt I had to just stay where I am. I'm American. I was born an American, and I will stay an American.
Now, was your father, was he in the service?
Yes, he was. The irony is I never really knew it till later on, and he was in for about 6 months. He went into the service during World War II, and ended up, they found out he had a bad back, et cetera, and bad eyes, and after 6 months, sent him home. And then also in that time also, I didn't even know this, that my grandfather, on my mother's side, was in the Navy right after World War I. He actually joined, and he was there for 2 years.
Wow.
That's what I was told. And then he told me the story later on. And I, like I said, I joined the Army. I was like surprised that he was in the service, but never talked about it.
I would imagine growing up in the city as a kid, you have a lot of family and friends and people that you know.
Yes.
And you're coming out of World War I, World War II, Korea, now Vietnam. You have a lot of veterans.
Oh.
You had older guys that served in the earlier wars. You had younger guys that were at the start of Vietnam and maybe Korea.
Right.
The very end of World War II, right?
Yes.
So you kind of had a lot to draw from.
I did. Later on, I learned so much from them. It's kind of funny that when I got out in 1972, I just said, that's it, I'm done with the service. But what had happened was, when I got older, when I was 60 years old, they told me, join, and I finally joined first I joined the JWV, and then I also joined the Legion. But as time went on, I realized that I did a service for this country, and it was all because of the service where I am today, literally.
So now you enlist. Did you go to Fort Hamilton too?
I went to, I believe I was somewhere at Fort Hamilton and went in. And I wanted to get in. Sure. And the irony was, they told me at first, I thought they were going to fail me because, like I did in school, but no. It ended up, first thing I did was get accepted into Fort Hamilton. And next thing I know, I ended up in Fort Gordon, Georgia. And from Fort Gordon, Georgia, I spent 6 weeks there, and I figured, with the basic training as everyone else. And I didn't think I was going to make it, but I did make it through that 6 months of basic training. Then to AIT.
Did you stay at Gordon, or did you go elsewhere, Benning? Or
no. I went from there, from Fort Gordon, Georgia, to Fort Lee, Virginia.
Okay, all right.
And then from Fort Lee, Virginia.
What was your AIT?
My AIT was, quote, stock control and accounting.
So supplies.
Yeah.
And my grandfather was there.
Oh, he was.
And he lived Brooklyn, Hempstead, and Roslyn.
Right.
And then the end of his life was in North Babylon. So you guys could have
met.
Yeah, you guys could have crossed paths, right?
It's funny too that you do talk about crossing paths. You do cross paths with other people. I was in Germany. Then I ended up from Fort Hood, Texas. They sent X amount to Vietnam, and I thought I was going to go to Vietnam. It didn't matter. You were a young kid. It didn't matter. And ended up, I was in Fort Hood, Texas, and next thing I know...
How do you like Fort Hood?
Fort Hood, I enjoyed it there because...
A little different than Far Rockaway, though, right?
Oh, yes. Right? And not only basics, when you first walked in there, you were in a new country, literally, in Texas.
Sure.
And this was another
very independent state, Texas, right?
Yes, and not only that, it was also a place where, besides being Jewish, being from New York, they looked at you and said you're a foreigner.
Yeah,
you stood out. And the thing is, when I was in the service, it didn't matter to me. I wore my Star of David. And I got the looks from others on anti-Semitism. And this is
I was going to ask you that.
Yes.
So you felt some of that there, right?
Yes. What happened was literally when I was in Virginia, the first day I went out for Yom Kippur, I ended up finding, sitting down, I was in a YMCA of all places before I went to the people's homes. And I'm sitting down there with a guy from Arkansas, and I'm talking to him, and he just, all had our hair cut and everything else. And he said, he looked at me and he saw my dog tags, and on my dog tags, it said Jewish. And he's looking at me after we had a great conversation, everything. And he says to me, quote, "Where are your horns?" And I was scratching my head, and I didn't understand. I'm a young kid from Brooklyn, and coming there, I said, "What are you talking about?" So then I realized something, that this was during the time of the Vietnam, that they didn't know what a Jew was. But I'm in Virginia now, and now I'm going to someone's house. But before I went to their home for Yom Kippur services, it ended up, I went to the synagogue beforehand. And in the synagogue itself, I was like shocked to hear that the rabbi said something derogatory against us being where we were in Virginia. And this is a big town for the soldiers. And I was in uniform, and the looks I got and what was said, I was very disappointed.
Yeah, taken back.
Back, very big. And then next thing I know, I went to these families' house right afterwards, and I was taken in as part of their family because I'm here in the middle of nowhere, Yom Kippur, and I just wanted to get away for the holidays. And I was just curious to see what would happen.
Yeah, you want to pay respects just like you would at home.
Right.
You're not overseas somewhere.
Not yet.
And to be asked those type of questions is...
I was at home in Virginia.
Yeah.
And then what I did is, next thing I knew, like I told you, I was in Texas. And Texas, it's funny. In Texas, what happened was I met a young girl at a USO meet. Yeah, we went to one of these. I was in Killeen. And she says to me, she found out I was Jewish, and she says to me, "Gary, come here." And she said to me, quote, "I'm taking you not here. I'm getting you out of here. And I'm sending you to the Jewish part of town to meet Jewish people." And I'll never forget her. And she said to me she was doing it for a reason, because a lot of the other guys were getting on drugs and everything else. Because also, as I noticed too, is I myself never drank before, but drinking that, and she just pulled me away from it.
Yeah.
And then next thing I know, afterwards, I really didn't touch liquor after that. And then
keep an eye on you a little bit, right?
She was. She was actually keeping an eye on me. And I went out and just on the public and learned so much about it. And next thing I knew, like I told you, in Fort Hood, Texas, next thing I know, I'm being told by the government to come down. In Fort Hood, they said X amount are going to Vietnam, X amount are going to go to Hawaii or to Germany. And next thing I know is I'm being told I'm going to Germany. Okay, great. And I didn't know what it was. It was like a stopping ground to Vietnam. But as time went on, it was scary because you're a young kid. Then you realize what life was like.
Yeah.
And what happened was, when I got over there, I decided to go on the economy instead of on the base or whatever. And what I did is, the first night I was there, I thought for a minute the war was over there too, with anti-Semitism. But what I did is I went there, and what happened was I was looking for the synagogue that was on that block there. And I'm scratching my head, couldn't find it, walking up and down on that block. And I didn't speak German. So I went to a police officer, and I asked him in English, and I was in my uniform. And he's looking at me, and I said, "Oh, shoot, did I do something wrong?" And he was aiming for his gun. I'll never forget it. And I said, "What did I do wrong?" But he did. He took me to the place, to the synagogue. And to this day, I realized something, that they covered the Star of David's. And what happened was, I walked in that door.
Why did they do that?
Because I found out the day before.
They have threats.
They had anti-Semitism.
Wow.
Someone drew a bomb somewhere in one of the synagogues.
Yeah, that was not a great time to be in Germany. You had a lot of radical stuff
Right.
right? You had elements of
Right. And then
communists and then anti-Semitic.
Right,
and
exactly.
It was a tough time over there.
And what I did is when I walked in there, I understood. Later on in life, I understood why. I opened the door up, and all the people, even though I was in uniform, that were there, actually were looking me up and down, sideways, etc. They didn't trust me, even though I was the American in my uniform. But then I understood why later on and realized that most of these people were from the Holocaust.
Yeah.
And not only from the Holocaust, they were from Israel.
Yeah.
And I
They lost
understood
family
why.
members.
They lost family members, and they didn't trust anybody.
Yeah.
But I did gain their trust because I was in Germany in Munich until I was...
How old were you about that time?
I was 20 years old.
21 years old? 20?
Yeah, I was 20 years old. And
Pretty eye-opening. You're in the United States.
And
They're
then I go
asking
there.
you, like, where are your horns?
Yep.
Then you're kind of being told to go to certain parts of the town.
To stay. Right.
And then you go over to Germany, and you think Germany's
Different.
definitely a better spot than
Right.
being in Vietnam or in some of the other places.
Right.
And then you're just looking to honor your own faith, right? And
then even better yet, so someone, like I told you, I was on the economy, so I became very friendly with what happened was first is before that I was really in Augsburg, but till I got to Munich, what happened was I decided myself to go, and I didn't like where I was, and in the infantry unit. So what happened was I decided to go again to Temple, but they didn't have a temple in Augsburg. I had to go to Munich. And in Munich itself, it was on the post. And little did I know, I went on the post and sat down with them. And the guy says to me, "Hey, you're Jewish." And the guy I was talking to, he was a Catholic chaplain's assistant. And he was going to become a priest at one time, he said. But he wanted to first be a chaplain's assistant. So he says to me, "How would you like to work with the rabbi here? He's looking for someone." So I said, "Okay, fine, with me." I said, "I have no idea what you're talking about, but I'll do it." So next thing I know is I went on my captain's head, and I did what I had to.
And that was an American military base?
American military, yeah. And
what base was that? Ramstein?
Yeah. It was somewhere in Augsburg, so I remember. And what happened was they said to me after a couple of weeks that we'll transfer you over here. And they did, and they transferred me to the chaplain's division. And not knowing what it was, I had no idea. I had my own apartment, and I'm working for a rabbi and a priest and everything else. And I figured then I'll know more or less what's going on. And what I did is after that, I decided to continue on with helping the rabbis. And I learned all about other religions, etc. And then one day, I made a good friend with one of the soldiers' sons. And he says to me, "Gary, come with me." And I said, I had no idea who this place was called, Dachau.
Dachau, yeah.
And I said, "I have no idea, let's go there." And he says, "Please go with an open mind." And I said, "All right, I'm going." I'm a young kid in my 20s. And I go in, and beautiful chapel that I saw there. And I said, everything terrific, right? And next thing I know, I see where they had the ovens and everything else. And my mind closed. But what happened was...
That's kind of a tough thing to go there with an open mind, right?
Right. And like I said, my mind closed. And to this day, it still is closed. Because when I walked down a valley and then I called it the Arnold Baker oven. It was the actual temple that they had, that they built like an oven.
Yeah.
And they had these big iron gates on there and a big lock like that. And I'm saying to myself, what the heck is going on? And next thing I know, I continued on there. And I said, after that, I started working with others from Israel and figuring out, what to do, because you were hated there. And what I did one day, this is the truth, where it was their for their soldiers, like we have Memorial Day, they have something else. So they were all celebrating this. And what I did is, my friends from Israel, all of us put out our Star Davids out and just walked the streets. We didn't care. and no problems. But then one time, my friends and I are walking, and they're from Israel, and they were from the 67 war. And I thought for a minute they'd do something, but no, they'd help someone. Out of nowhere, we're walking the streets, and out of a bar comes this guy thrown out of the bar, and he's talking in German, and he says, "I hate all Jews." And we looked at him, and I said, to myself, I didn't speak, but my friend told me
Were
what he
you
said.
in uniform or?
No, it was not in uniform.
Okay.
So we were all there, the three guys, and I thought for a minute they'd do something. Nope. They said, "Why do you hate the Jews? We're Jewish. We're taking care of you.
Yeah.
We're picking you up
Sure.
and helping you." He says, "Because the bar owner's Jewish, and he decided he was too drunk, threw him out." So that, part of learning about anti-Semitism. And then another time.
When you were in Dachau,
Yes.
were you in just a one part of the camp, or did you walk around the whole?
I walked around the whole camp, and that's, to this day, I have a picture of it still at home. And it no matter what it does, it lingers in your mind forever. And then
It's a huge place, right? It's a big.
it was a big place.
Yeah.
And I said, just like everyone else said to this day, how people didn't know, I don't know.
Yeah, nonsense that they did know.
They did know, and they willingly did this. And then there was another thing, too, that was there. They still had the barracks there from the Germans, and our guys from the Army, they had that as a base. And from what I understand, I was talking to some of them there, and they said they'd been in there, and they have nightmares by being part of that.
Yeah, I know a man out in Wading River, out by near where I live. His dad was over there after the war,
Yes.
and he actually lived at Dachau.
Oh, he
Because I guess they had the barracks and stuff like that.
Yep.
But that's a rough place to stick American soldiers and families. I mean, it's bad enough you're miles away from there, let alone living there,
Right.
And now, how far was Munich from Dachau itself?
Offhand, I don't know anymore. It's been a while. But
it's close.
It's
though,
close.
right?
It's close enough. And I ended up going to other parts of the country. And, of course, finding anti-Semitism.
Sure.
Because I used to joke with my friends, said, shh, don't tell them I'm Jewish.
Yeah.
And then one time we're sitting there in a guest house, and we hear something, Jewish gibberish or whatever. And then I found out later on that there was a captain who was in the Green Berets, and he was in a tavern, and they said something to him, and that tavern was no more.
Wow.
He decided to mix up a little bit, and say something.
Now, you travel throughout Germany.
Yeah.
You're a quartermaster over there?
No, I was the chaplain's assistant.
Wow, so
I was
You changed your MOS then?
My they changed it for me,
Did you have to do any religious studies with that?
No, I didn't. I just ended up helping the Protestant preach, et cetera, and mainly the Jewish rabbi. And then I learned about the rabbi. My rabbi was very religious. And
was he American Army?
He was American Army, and he came from Brooklyn, Williamsburg, from what I understand. And his name was Rabbi Rockoff. And I tried, it's funny, later on in life, I decided to try and find him. And little did I know that he was in Long Island somewhere after all this, after I checked it out.
Unbelievable, right?
And I found out his son could be a rabbi now. But I'd love to find him. That's the whole thing.
Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
You're a Jewish kid here from New York City.
Yeah.
- Long Island, right?
Yep.
The rabbi itself is an American military rabbi, like you're in the service too.
Yeah.
Did your family members lose anybody in the Holocaust?
I was lucky in my family. That's all I could say. As far as I know, none. But as time went on, I realized that they did take away from my family because they were Jewish.
Yeah.
And they were young kids, just like today, going through the Holocaust Museum. And I'll tell you this is...
And the areas where they came over from... So what's
Germany.
From Germany...
Yeah,
we're wiped out. We're totally wiped out. Yeah,
and I'll tell you, this is the best thing today that I feel is I brought my grandson, who's 13, who's just starting to learn about the Holocaust.
Sure.
he walked in here, and I think he really got a little dose of it. And seeing it for the first time in real life, and I just sat him down and I said, "You go walk through here," and he walked through himself, and I think he realizes what could happen.
Sure.
And I would keep on not harping on
This is
reading
a
books.
very immensely powerful place. I mean, I'm in here a lot.
Yeah.
Doing the show here, right? I used
Yeah.
to bring teachers groups. And even when I'm rushing and I'm walking through,
Right, you
I'm
have to
still
stop.
looking. It doesn't just pass me by.
Right.
And I've been here so often that I know a lot of the exhibits almost by heart, right?
Right.
And you still
You
look. It's still that respect towards
right. And not
a
only
nightmare,
that,
right?
Now more than ever, as you know me, I became very friendly with these people from Holocaust groups, et cetera. And I realized that could have been me, or
Sure.
it could be my grandson. And it's scary that
Or family members that
any
you had,
family
right?
members, my wife, et cetera. And it's funny, I said this to my wife, and she said, she reads the books and everything. I said, I live it, because I end up meeting all these people from the Holocaust, or the JCCs, all these places, and realize that what they went through and what they are now, it gets me not angry. It wants me to do more work.
Sure. All right. So we're going to come back with Gary Glick here on hmTV and the Fog of War and Humanity for a second episode. Gary is one of the main history, military, government, energy to always make sure that these things are not forgotten. Please return for a second episode with Gary Glick.